Yeah. Uh, really appreciate all of you being here this evening. And I think the reason I really wanted to do this as a conversation with Vineet is like he and I are on the National Executive Council of IVCA. It's a body whose president is here, Rajat is here. There are over 200 plus investors on that. So both of us are on the National Council. And, and as a part of that process, I've got to know him better. I've got to learn about what he does. And I just found the story so really inspiring of what Vineet has been doing for such a long time as an individual and through the organization, that it's, and what he's planning to do more importantly over the next part, let's say in the coming years ahead, that I thought it's a story which is really interesting. And why don't we do it in Quorum, which is, a more intimate gathering, and, have a few friends and people who might be interested in this topic to just reflect on it. So while you saw this video recently, and that already gives you some idea, but let me give you the scale of the impact of this journey, which started nearly 20 years ago. It's outside of the government, might be the largest organization as a private individual who's impacted or touched lives of so many people across the length and breadth of this country. Nearly 10 crore people. It's like staggering number. Like one of those 10 crore people has got impacted by what Aavishkaar Group has done. Very big number out of that. I could get the numbers wrong, but there are over 2 crore women who've actually benefited in one way or the other, whether it's healthcare, whether it's loans, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's jobs. And that is what impact investing is all about. It's a very loosely used term. It's like asking somebody on a topic of, oh, how are the markets doing? Or, what do you invest in? It's like such an open-ended topic. But in impact investing, a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people discuss it. But I think here is somebody who's living and breathing it every day. And he's kind of created a culture in the organization. And I think now the impact for the last few years is being felt at a national level. And I think you're going to hear a lot more about this story and name in the years ahead. And I think it's inspiring for a lot of people. Over 70 investments, 39 exited, 1,500 early stage companies involved in it, 14,000 crore microfinance loans. His journey is unique because he's taken the path lesser traveled. I too am a fund manager, but I don't think I could dare to do what he has attempted. I admire his guts, his vision, his perseverance to take this journey. And maybe it's already a Harvard case study, I don't know. But if it is not, it should be one. Stanford, okay, that's close. So I really wanted to share this story with everybody and the impact that it's having in the country. So with that, maybe I'm going to start a few questions of Vineet and try and keep this engaging. So after I'm kind of done, I would encourage you all to also, ask or share whatever you might have in mind. Okay, Vineet, should we start? So Vineet, there are a few myths which are involved with impact investing. And let me start with this, that one of the focus areas of impact investing is lending. And you provide capital, which is like the oil, for the people who need it. And money is a big accelerator. So the question is, can you share like what domains of investing, like when you've done this 14,000 crores of lending through Arohan and your investee companies plus, what are the big domains where this capital has got channelized?
So first, thank you, Nipun, for having me, and thanks to all of you for coming all the way to listen to me. Impact investing is probably inspiring, but not most exciting, let me tell you that. It's a slow, boring process of trying to do things that exciting people normally ignore. So excitement is in Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad. I wanted to create jobs where people live. One of the challenges all of you face, everybody is migrating to these places, and one of the reasons it happens is because naturally, as the world urbanizes, specifically developing countries like India, you will have few centers of growth and everybody goes there. So I am a forester by training, and I was living in a forest in Odisha. This is 94, 96, 95, 96, 97. And I saw poverty from very close. In Odisha, there was nobody who was begging in the forest. People used to die, simply die right in front of my eyes. I had seen children born with almost no blood, passing away right in front of my eyes. And I wanted to join army, so I'm a fairly hard-hearted guy, not necessarily get very moved. But what I could clearly sense is that every person that I met, and hundreds and thousands of them, these people wanted to get out of this poverty where they were helpless. And to me, poverty is, or becoming rich as I defined there, is not necessarily about having a helicopter or a private jet. It is actually about having the power to make choices. It's very important if you can have 2 square meals a day, the choice to have 2 square meals a day. A lot of us probably may not be having 2 square meals a day because our body is now, metabolism is too low. But to a lot of people, that's a choice. They don't have the choice to have 2 square meals a day. Can you send your children to a school? That's a choice that you must have. And so when I started off, my belief was, can we create choices and that will make people rich? And I got married. My wife saw the forest. She was also trained in forestry. But the kind of forest I was living in was way too difficult. She was quite classically urban, as we all were at that point of time. Coming from small towns, but coming from a fairly government backing. So living in a very remote part was difficult. I was given a very short time to either choose the wife or the job. I chose the wife, came out of the forest. The only people who were willing to hire me, I applied for a car salesman in Muscat to anything and everything in India, but only IIM Ahmedabad was looking for a guy for research who has lived in a forest, worked for a corporate, and I think I was the only Indian amongst the billion who qualified. So I landed up in IIM Ahmedabad, spent 11 months typing, sitting on a computer. 9 months was enough for me. I told the professor I was working with, "Main chhod ke ja raha hu." And he said, "Where will you go?" I said, "Boss, I am not going to stay here. I'm going wherever." And he made a recommendation. He said, "Government of Gujarat is setting up an incubator. Why don't you apply?" And this is 1997. So 1997, incubator was an unheard term in India. Government of Gujarat, therefore, is pioneering in many sense. I applied for the post of manager. I was 26 years old. I thought manager is a great designation to have as a 26-year-old. Unfortunately, they couldn't find a CEO, so the chief secretary asked me, "CEO banoge?" I had no choice but to say yes. So I became the CEO of probably India's first incubator, ran it for 4 years. If you are the first guy running anything in this country, you'll become famous, so I became famous quite quickly. By 29, I thought I was the smartest guy in the world. I thought everybody is an idiot. My board has chief secretary, 6 additional chief secretary, 3 professors of IIM Ahmedabad. And I thought I was the smartest among them. So in 2000, I made a presentation to my board. I told them, "Listen, guys, every Indian carries a dozen ideas in their back pocket. The problem is not with the ideas. The problem lies in the capital that will take that idea to fructification. And you are not giving me capital, and I am not giving them capital. So nothing will change if you don't give me money." The government heard me out very patiently and told me, "We hired you to do a job. Keep doing it. You're doing a good job." In a huff, I quit right there. This is 1st March 2001. And I did not realize how difficult it is to raise money. I had never met a rich guy. I only knew bureaucrats, government, etc. And I was in Ahmedabad. And I started Aavishkaar, registered it in Paldi in Ahmedabad, and then started looking for rich people. Idea was very simple. I wanted jobs to be created where people live so that people can come out of poverty, become rich in terms of choices. And at that point of time, everybody was doing a not-for-profit. So for a guy to actually go and seek capital to give to other entrepreneurs to create jobs and livelihoods in rural India was seen very tangential to anything people have heard. Google had arrived, I sent a lot of mails, and one gentleman called me back. He now happens to be Chief Economic Advisor, Anant Nageshwaran. Anant just saw my mail, called me, and introduced me to rich people. He asked me to come to Singapore. I had never traveled out of India. Went to Singapore. He hosted me at his home, sent me a to and fro ticket because I didn't have the money. And I met some 50 Indians there, including Sanjeev Sanyal and many others, and they all contributed small amounts. That's how Aavishkar's first $100,000 were raised. Every penny of that was invested, and my struggle continued over this journey. Coming back to the question that you asked, I'm giving the background just so that you understand where I'm coming from and what I was doing. Impact investing is a term that got coined in 2008. So I was already 8-year-old. 10 or 15 of us met in a Rockefeller Center in Italy, and we decided that what we are doing will be called impact investing because Rockefeller said we'll put $1 million behind this name. Our learning was very simple. When you're raising money, the mandate of money is very important. So money is for real estate. It will go into VC, PE. So if they don't know what category you fall in, you will never get money. No structured capital will ever come to you. This realization after 8 years of struggle was very clear to some of us. So we said we have to have a name and somebody has to give us money to sell that name. And impact investing was that term. Now the big question was, what does impact investing mean? Because a lot of people asked us, who does not make impact? Name few companies that don't make impact. And that's from that time I started saying, everybody actually makes impact, every company. So Apollo makes impact, anybody who built this building makes impact. But there are very few people who actually claim that they are going to make impact, are willing to held accountable for it. And that's really the definition of impact investing. If I say I will take your money, I will make investments that will actually make impact, and I will generate returns, that's impact investing. And that's really the transition from just giving money or having for example, Airtel has probably made more impact than Aavishkaar will ever make because you have brought in a generational technology that has leapfrogged many other things. I am not competing with Airtel. I am trying to do smaller things for those who are impacted but still find difficult to come out of poverty. So remember, a Google, a Airtel, etc., that will come out from mainstream capital will create significant returns and significant impact as well. But their intentionality to make impact did not exist. And we come from the intentionality and therefore pick up niche areas that do both. So I'll just stop here.
Yeah, I think that was important to set the context of defining impact. So maybe let's come back to that area of how diverse is impact investing, given your journey has been so long, and which are the areas that Aavishkaar is seeing the maximum traction is, or how are you focused about it? Because you and I have discussed, it probably straddles so many sectors, but I'm trying to kind of get context of where do you think the impact is.
So when I started, I was actually quite unambitious. Anything and everything that created rural jobs seemed like an intelligent idea. And we started putting in small money. So I was putting in 10 lakh, 15 lakh in startup entrepreneurs. Now this is 2002, 3, 4, 5, where the entrepreneur also did not know what they were doing. I also did not know. So we were, basically, kaane aur andhe ko jodi thi hum log. None of us knew what we were doing. Capital was very limited. Somebody asked me, how do you exit? And I actually wrote, pray to God. I actually boldly wrote in my presentation. In fact, 2009, I managed to raise $20 million because of that line. Because KFW, the German investor, said, you are the only honest person we have ever met. You actually pray to God to return money. Others don't tell us, but they also do the same. So when you look at sectors, the first sector that really did well for us was microfinance. I am the first investor in everything in microfinance. So from SKS, Share, Basics, Equitas, Credit Grameen, Bellstar, Utkarsh, Suryoday, I wrote the first check. Some of these people were in job interviews with me, and I actually told them, why do you want to do a job? I'll give you money, please go and start a microfinance institution. For two things: going and giving money to a poor woman, and expecting that money to come back in remotest part of India sounded quite bizarre and impossible to a banker. And if this could be done in a commercial way, it looked like an impossible dream. There were a lot of criticism of microfinance even at that time, because if you give a loan to a poor woman, these are the following outcomes. 33% people are worse off than what they were before they took the loan. So let's say I'm actually a person and I took a loan, 33% will be worse off. 33% will see no change in income. But roughly 1 out of every 3 women will be much better off than what she was. Microfinance was the first real entrepreneurial opportunity for a poor person to access capital with a 33% success ratio. Even Sequoia does not claim that kind of ratios. So therefore, I had not come across any program in the world which claimed to have 33% success ratio. Of course, the criticism was coming 67% time it is failing. But the 33% success was actually a very critical and important factor. So when we started investing in microfinance, just to give you an idea, every microfinance institution in India was a not-for-profit, and they did not understand the word equity. So I actually used to run classes where every CEO in microfinance sector in India went through that class of what is equity, what is debt, what is leverage, why do you need equity, what is technology, why should technology be incubated, and then invested. The first checks were given by us. Total microfinance of India was 100 crores, all of them put together, just 20 years back. Anybody out here, and not those who are in microfinance, make a guess what is India's microfinance outstanding today? Just wild guess. $45 billion, just to give you an idea. So I have seen the journey from $20 million to $45 billion of an industry that was unknown. When COVID struck, Governor of RBI spoke about microfinance every time within the first 2 lines when he addressed India. That's the kind of influence today microfinance claim. It of course have multi-billion-dollar entities. Bandhan is one of those, but there are many others who are all billions of dollars in valuation. Every global investor in some form or shape has participated in the industry. So that was the first industry that I saw success, but my first investments were in agriculture actually. Agriculture, handicrafts. My other investment, which actually did at least made significant impact, was in Fab India's backend. So William Bissell, who was the founder of Fab India, actually met me by accident, and William was struggling to scale Fab India for one reason, that India's handicraft is spread out. And how do you actually bring it to urban centers and provide it? Because you need to have the entire back end to be commercialized and professionalized. So William and I joined hands together and we invested in 17 companies. 6 of them were invested by me. And those companies we finally sold back to Fab India itself. They are now, and in the process we created 18,000 women who were actually making handcrafted stuff, become owners of those companies. Those 18,000 women now own shares in Fab India. Actually, the number is probably 70,000 now, but 18,000 was what we contributed to. Now, how do you think about not only just creating jobs and livelihoods, but actually creating wealth in the hands of people by making them owners of their own destiny? So that was the other thing that we did. Over time, agriculture became a very large space. We have invested in multiple companies in agri-tech and agriculture space. Some of them you saw in the video as well. Waste, water, sanitation. India's largest toilet company, Aavishkaar invested. India's largest dry waste company, Let's Recycle, we have invested. In fact, I only saw it in today's presentation that Let's Recycle, that we invested some 2 crores, today has raised $40 million. It has raised maximum amount of money. It was an IVCA presentation that I saw. So we have now done pretty much the entire horizon that impacts the lives of those who are living in remote parts of India or any rural parts of India.
So I think capital should never be taken for granted. Most of us know that, but I think it's even more critical for the several people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. Like imagine it's like life-changing experience and life-changing of what it can do to them. The other myth of impact investing is that, you know, we also invest. There are VC firms, you know, the buzzwords used of unicorns and multiples and returns that various asset classes generate. One of the things that people shy away from for impact investing, institutions and individuals, is that does it generate return or is it subsidized financing, right? So if you can throw some color on that, because on the flip side, if you take the urban India borrows at like home loans at 8-9%, car loans at 10-11%, let's say. All loans are below 14-15% for, you know, people. But on the contrary, impact investing and microfinance loans, I hear all kind of numbers, 20s and 30s and 40%. That's on that side. But as an investor in funds of Aavishkaar or other impact investors, one of that myth which I want to get your feedback on, does it generate return or is it subsidized?
So, I think most investors are very shy of disclosing their numbers, but Aavishkaar has been very public. I have always been very public about my return figures. I can bet my bottom dollar, not a single investor will ever disclose in a public forum of what kind of returns they have generated, good or bad, doesn't matter. The reason I actually chose to actually disclose whatever we have done is for two reasons. One, to explain to people that you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's a very logical argument. If you have eaten it, then you can't see it. But most people think that you can deliver impact and deliver the same kind of returns. This is a real myth. You can deliver returns, then you have to forget about impact. Impact has to become incidental. But if you are choosing to deliver impact, there will be some compromise. Now, where will the compromise come from? The compromise can come from three different ways. The first compromise will come from because you have gone and created the first company in Odisha, Bihar, UP, etc., the ecosystem is broken. The challenges that an entrepreneur in Gurgaon faces or in Bangalore faces is very different. Attracting talent in Varanasi and Bhubaneswar and in Baripada or anywhere is a Herculean task. So the entrepreneur in those geographies will face very different kinds of challenges. But they will also get different kinds of opportunities that you will not see here. When you go and make an investment there, the first thing that you will face with is the time. So if you are investing in Bangalore and you are investing in a tech company, you will have investors, follow-on investors, then an acquirer, everything within the same ecosystem. And the ecosystem, as it evolves and develops, you would be able to cycle your money in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years maybe. When you try to go and do this in an impactful way, what you are trying to see is a much longer time. So you might take 8, 9, 10, 11 years. And for Aavishkaar, we had no choice. I had no peer, unfortunately. I was the only one investing. So we took, in 2009 itself, this idea that mainstream guys must learn. And I learned from microfinance that microfinance nobody wanted to touch and suddenly everybody wanted to invest. Therefore, I realized that if you can show that there is a scalability opportunity available, commercial capital can come. And we started Sankalp to actually showcase 30 entrepreneurs every year to mainstream investors like Nipun. Come see what we are doing so that we can create. And India is the only global market in impact investing where commercial investors and impact investors actually coexist. And this was one way we started creating returns. Aavishkaar's first fund was 59 crores. I have returned 61 crores. I may end up returning 70 crores, but essentially what you have done is you have preserved capital and returned it. This is actually what I started raising with that 50 lakh in 2002. The second fund was a $18.3 million fund. In 2.5 years, I was $180 million in valuation. Then came what you call the famous 2010 microfinance crisis, and my $180 million became $22 million. I finally returned $32 million from that fund, so 2x, 16 to 32. My third fund is going to be, was a $30 million fund, and I have returned 30 million. We may end up returning between 90 to 120 million. This is around 21% rupee and probably 17.5% dollar return. Remember, I have invested my money at 45 rupees, returning at 80. So the returns are reasonably good, but dollar returns are still 17. My fourth fund was a very unique fund, and I will barely return the capital there because I actually went and created first companies in UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha. And those companies have done very well. Those companies have become large. But the times have changed. I have invested in real companies that are profitable. Unfortunately, only loss-making companies are valued today. So I forgot that you should be making large losses. Unfortunately, we didn't have that choice, so we created profitable companies. Nobody wants to buy or give valuation to them. So exits are available, but the valuations are actually 10 times profit PAT and not 10 times revenue when you're 1,000 crores in losses. So one mistake I made was I just did not know that this happened. So now we are concentrating on trying to find loss-making companies. I genuinely believe that some of the best listed companies are great impact investments because they will never make profits. So you are actually paying to create jobs. So this is the reality. And my learning personally is that times change. Aavishkaar had the choice to actually make investments which could have generated fairly significant returns because being an early stage investor, almost everything goes through us. But we stayed true to our claim of making investments that are difficult and that actually generate real impact. That means our returns are the way I defined to you. Some of my colleagues now actually say that why should we only take the onus of being impactful because, well, impact can be justified in any of the companies today which are listed or unlisted. But as a group, we have taken this call that we will not try to fool ourselves. I mean, I can fool all of you, but I can't fool myself. And after spending 20 years, it becomes very difficult to convince yourself that you can actually do something which is not impactful. So to the extent possible, despite a lot of internal stress, strain, fights, etc., we continue to stick to what we know best, to do companies that are very impactful. I have one of great entrepreneurs, Param here, who probably will actually give us a lot of returns. But he is doing a very difficult job. He is doing something which is really difficult. And hopefully if he succeeds, probably we will, and hopefully we'll stay profitable and not learn from loss-making companies. So.
Thanks. One of the things which I'm remembering from days in college is there was a greater fool theory. That you have to always find a greater fool than yourself to keep the valuations going so the world never changes. Some things never change. But looks like there's sanity coming back on the planet after a 10-year of madness. And maybe this cycle is different and profitable companies might get their due respect than just loss-making companies. Another myth, given you've been so focused on microfinance as a segment, and microfinance is normally small loans to people in smaller towns with smaller businesses, and I just want to kind of understand the delinquency levels that you see while lending to this. One of the apprehensions is that you're giving money to people. Okay, COVID was a dislocation where business shut down, but in normal case, how is delinquency significantly higher for the microfinance sector and hence makes it lot more risky, or not so? So maybe you can give us your experience.
My guess is a lot of people do not know microfinance, but microfinance is a very simple business. You identify women, only women, no men. You create a small group, 4 or 5 women. You convince them that the money that is, they will identify the person who the money will be. So the loan is given through a group to an individual. So the loan is always to an individual. It's very different from a government program called self-help group, where the loan is given to the group, and the group then decides to loan. In a private microfinance, you create a group but give the loan to an individual. The group stands guarantee. And the track record of microfinance is it is more in terms of, it is lower in delinquency in terms of even secured assets. Microfinance till 2008, people used to claim there was zero delinquency. That's not correct because the group used to pay for the delinquent customer. So they were not recording delinquency. Delinquency was there, they just didn't record it. In reality, microfinance in normal times is 0.6. So Arohan, which is our own company, over last 14 years, our delinquency is 0.65%. That is lower than any asset that you can pick up in this country. This is all women. These are very poor women. By the way, we lend in UP, Bihar, Bengal, Tripura, Assam, Meghalaya. These are the states that we lend in. And these women are poorest of the poor women, but they will come and pay money, come what may. There are episodic disturbance. Remember, these are unsecured loan, completely unsecured loan. The yield varies between 19 to 25%. So you are essentially going to charge on an IRR reducing balance basis, 19 to 25, little less than the credit card loan that people take, but still quite high. Part of the reason is that we borrow from a bank at 10, 12%. Then you go and deliver this money at the hands of the women in the villages where they live, and then you collect it every week or fortnightly from there. So it's a very laborious and an expensive process. And therefore, you have roughly 10 to 11% of a cost of delivery itself. So if you borrow at 11% of your cost of delivery, 22%, 1 or 2%, 1% default, 23. So at 24, 25%, you break even. And that's why microfinance has a slightly higher cost. But remember, the woman is more interested in the timeliness of the availability of capital than actually the cost of the capital, because money, the velocity of money at the small scale becomes far more important than the loan percentage. Remember, when you go to Ajadpur Mandi right here, people who are actually coming, who are traders, take a 100 rupee loan in the morning and return 110 in the evening. That's 10% a day. We are talking about 23% on an annualized basis. So that's the kind of variation that exists in the loans that we are doing. And microfinance, therefore, is doing a human service in trying to do financial inclusion. And today, I don't know how many of you will believe this, but Aavishkaar Group's Arohan does not give a single rupee as cash. We are 100% electronic. Today, we can disperse a loan in 30 minutes to any woman in any part of India based on an electronic survey of us. I mean, you won't believe it, but we have 15 crore women who are actually been recorded in the credit bureau. We can do an instant 30-second check on any poor women in India today. It's just mind-boggling the kind of infrastructure that has been built. The cash transfer that we do is into their bank accounts, and 93% of our loan comes back to us electronically. So that's the power that has been done. It has been done in 15, 20 years. It's just beyond belief what is happening on the ground.
So, you know, that was one of my takeaways when I interacted with Vineet, that the most secure lending in this country is to the uneducated, poor, invisible women who are, and it's an unsaid story, but I think the real change that you are noticing in the country, which, you know, media always wants to report exciting things about the top 200 people in the country or 500, like media takes away that space. But I think what is happening at the back end is one of the myths which is broken is that the financial acumen of women and the entrepreneurial acumen of women is really smart, nothing to do with formal education, and just getting access to credit can change not just her life, but I'm assuming the family's life. So that, and the impact is really visible because the family size, even if it's 4, you know, imagine you're going to like 40, 50 million women, you're kind of impacting almost 200 million people through that whole process. So if you can touch on that, like, you know, this part of what kind of, it must be very diverse, but again, within that, what is it that women are doing? Like, they seem to be the biggest entrepreneurs in the country, whereas men have gone out to become drivers and, you know, construction workers and jobs in urban centers. But there's something happening which I really don't have a pulse on, and probably like to come with you on one of your visits also to figure out.
So this is, so I think the interesting part of microfinance is generally, so there are many utilization of the capital. So once you give a loan, it could actually be that the women want to buy a rickshaw for the husband. That's also possible. Cow and goats used to be one of the biggest investments actually earlier. But selling flowers, hand carts, push carts for hawking. There's huge, all kinds of variety of this thing. Basically, handicrafts, huge number of handicrafts borrowers. Generally, a microfinance loan is sub 1 lakh loan. It's generally between 10,000 to 50, 75,000. Rarely do we give a 1 lakh rupee loan. Average outstandings are between 20, 25,000. When I started off, average outstanding was to be 2,200 rupees. So it's gone up by 10, 15 times. RBI is also cognizant. RBI has defined microfinance as sub 1.5 lakhs now. And it is actually given now on the basis of the family income. So you can't actually give more than, the installment has to be below a certain amount of family income. So there are fairly complex rules now of how to identify a client. And you cannot be a third loan. So no borrower can have more than 2 loans. You can't give a third loan because it can be now verified.
Are they all in CIBIL?
We actually have dedicated credit bureaus, not CIBIL, but Equifax, Highmark. So these are very large, very profitable businesses now on their own right.
So I think the other one is, even whether it's us as investors or almost any investor, one of the challenges for any investor is not, like, part of it is making the investment, but that's just the beginning of the journey. The real challenge is exiting that investment and really getting it back. So in impact investing, what's the average tenor like of your investments? And what is the takeout? Like, normally you have private equity, acquisitions, mergers, these are for, and they need scale. But for microfinance or any other part of impact investing, what's the takeout?
So microfinance has become too large now. It's actually, banks have bought companies, IPOs, number of IPOs, not one, not two. Fusion actually just IPO'd. This was a company that we incubated actually. Not only incubated, gave the first money, taught them how to do the first loan, etc. So Fusion just IPO'd, but there are so many companies that have IPO'd. Then post-IPO, there is acquisition as well. I mean, SKS was bought over by IndusInd. There are talks of actually some other banks trying to acquire other companies. So small and big, everything has been acquired. But microfinance is a very evolved story. Let's look at what is happening in agriculture, waste, water, sanitation, and other areas. I think India has changed very dramatically from a startup point of view. I mean, you're sitting in Gurgaon. Today, Param doesn't need to find me to raise his first capital. A large number of people individually here sitting in this room might actually be able to support him simply because he has an exciting idea. And pretty much every Indian now understands that if you are doing something in agriculture, you can build a 1,000 crore company, 2,000 crore company, maybe 5,000 crore company because of the sheer size of the space. Now, since every Indian can understand it and a large number of angels are putting in money, there are lots of tech, and pretty much all the complex problem in agriculture can be, technology has a role to play to solve it because there is no other way to solve it. I mean, for example, I'll just give you an example. I met 2 young guys in 2015 in Bihar, in Samastipur. And they said, listen, our farmers, and Samastipur is actually back of beyond, lots of farmers. And they said, listen, our farmers have a lot of grain, but no cash. So I want to create a grain bank. So I said, what is a grain bank? There are a lot of banks. He said, how about I digitize grain that the farmer has, provide them a secure place to keep it, and then use that digital asset to get them financing and allow them to store dispose of the grain at the right time when the price is 1.4 times of when the harvest is taking place. Now, the catch here is, do you have warehouses? In India, there are a large number of warehouses. The warehouses do provide electronic this thing, but the warehouse minimum ask is 10 tons. Not many farmers in India produce 10 tons. The second thing is, it is designed for traders. It's not designed for farmers. So the farmer requires desperately money when the harvest is ready. Lot of traders then go bargain and may buy the standing crop. Farmer has to store, they have to actually, when they don't have money, they have to first harvest it, keep it for 2-3 days in the open, hope and pray no rain comes through, then find other people who can join, find a truck, pay the driver, take it somewhere, put it with no guarantees that you will be able to hold it till the time you can sell it for a higher price. What this guy finally did was effectively build this tech platform and created these very small godowns in the villages, where he's paying 2 rupees square feet, 3 rupees square feet. He did not spend any money in building the infrastructure, asked a farmer to build the infrastructure, took it on lease. 2015, I gave him 2 crores. Then I gave another 2 crores, another 2 crores. This is all Bihar, so talent, everything was a problem. 2022, the gentleman is growing at 300%. Last year, he did 140 crores. This year, he will cross 350 crores. He started from Bihar. His entire turnover of 140 crore came from Bihar. Today he's actually in Karnataka and Maharashtra. And the state, the Secretary of Agriculture, Government of India, Secretary of Agriculture, Maharashtra government, everybody has visited Bihar to find how did this come about. I only invested 8 crores. Now he has raised 100 crores from other investors as well. But this is the power of taking that risk that I took by going in Samastipur. Now, how many venture capital investors will find this guy in Samastipur? It's difficult. How many, even if they will find, will put in money? It's challenging. And that's really where the opportunity is. But can this company become a 10,000 crore company? Just in Bihar, he can cross 10,000 crores. That's the quantum and scale that is possible. It doesn't need to go out. India is like Europe. So you don't, every state can deliver you 10,000 crores if you actually have the patience and ability to raise capital.
So I think we've discussed a lot on Aavishkaar. I'll probably, one question and I'll want to switch to the foundation, but let's talk forward and the challenge of scaling up. Like from here, Aavishkaar, next 5 to 10 years, you have an operating business model, and you have a fund investing model. What is the challenge you see, given where you are in the journey now?
So it started as a very simple idea. It's become complex as we have scaled up. Aavishkaar's structure is simple. We have a holding company. Me and my colleagues, we own 51%. 49% is owned by 4 large investors. These investors put in roughly more than $100 million in a very short span of time, between 2018 and 2019, so that I can actually scale all businesses. At that point of time, we were growing at around 70% year on year. So we were actually scaling up like a rocket, partly because India was doing. I didn't calculate COVID in my calculation. Then came COVID, and COVID has actually damaged, especially the microfinance business, all lending businesses in India. And so we are at this point of time finding ways to give an exit to our investors who came at the holding company. For 2 reasons, I don't believe I will be able to give them the kind of commercial returns. Remember, even though I want to make impact, the returns have to be commercial, because the investors want impact, but the impact is for us, return is for them, and the return has to be commercial. So there is pretty much no discounting for doing impact. People want similar kind of returns. They may take less returns simply because of the complexity, etc., but not because we are making impacts. So I realized very quickly that 2026, I may not be able to meet the expectations they had because our growth. So we were 10,000 crores in 2020 March, and we are 10,500 or 11. So we have not grown at 70%. We are not 30,000 crores now. And so I changed my strategy. I'm actually giving them an exit through my 2 NBFCs. We keep 100% of our investing business and advisory business. The NBFCs, we'll give 50%, whatever percentage they own, and we'll keep the remaining. And we believe between 2022 and 2030, and I am actually personally very inspired by Sustainable Development Goals, which is the first time 195 governments of the world have come together to sign an agreement to say that they want to imagine a world without hunger, without poverty, without inequity by 2030. Now, for that to happen, we have to roughly invest 2.5 trillion every year in what I do. 2.5 trillion every year, worldwide, not just. In India, you need to invest roughly around 600 billion. So 25% of votes world is needed. Now world has $400 trillion of capital. So we are actually asking 1% to be put in. Or if world is growing by 2% or 2.5%, then it has to just give up 1% of the growth for the world to have no hunger, no poverty, no inequity. Now that's mind-boggling. Since the time Homo sapiens have started walking straight, the world has never seen a world like that. It may not happen in 2030, but it's a great and very ambitious example, and we believe we are contributing to that. 17 goals, we are contributing to 14 of them. So if Aavishkaar can grow from 10,000 to 11,000 crore to 1 lakh crore over next 8 to 9 years, which I think is reasonably possible, if another COVID doesn't happen. I mean, future is unpredictable. In 2020, I was 10 times more confident. In 2022, a little less confident. But I genuinely still believe that with the passion that we have, we most likely will be able to reach 1 lakh crore. That is not pretty as large as to change or to make a significant dent to sustainable development goals, but it will be a reasonable contribution for this country as well. And I think I am right now going and talking to every institution in the world to see if I can motivate them to seek returns, but allow us to make those impact at the same time. We fail 99 times of 100 appeals that I make, 99 times we fail. But ultimately, my objective is to succeed at one time. And the better I connect, the better the chances of success. So one of the reasons why I was very tempted to come here was you never know who of you may become a multi-millionaire, 100 billionaire, etc. In India, billionaires now are falling from all over and may decide to back us in some form and shape. Every rupee counts, every dollar counts. So we are not ashamed to take anybody's money. Till the time you can trust us and you are aligned on the vision that we are trying to create. So.
It's not crazy at all. I think, while 1 lakh crore sounds like a very big number, but if you take HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, all these banks are like anywhere between 5 to 15 lakh crores as numbers. So I think it's very doable. And more importantly, the impact that will have is multifold than, what some of the banks do. I think Apollo will be part of that journey. I'll be part of that journey, so I'll be tracking it closely. But I think I just want to pivot. This is what was Aavishkaar about. The other interesting thing that we were discussing, and I thought we can spend some time on and will not go too long. I think we're already close to, 45, 50 minutes. So maybe the last 10 minutes on this is around India is producing about 60 to 65 lakh graduates every year. One of the challenges we face as a country is really employment. We don't think about it too much. We are lucky, we are fortunate, all of us, but it is the single biggest problem for people in this country. Not just getting money, but just whether it's employment or jobs. And I think about nearly 10 lakh plus engineering grads. People say, oh, how will we generate so many jobs? Like, I've looked at it many different ways, and I shouldn't say a conclusion, but probability is that we'll not be able to create these jobs. We just cannot create as many jobs because the number of companies that are getting registered, you do all the metrics and you look at it from whichever angle, is going to be a miss. It's going to be a big miss. How big a miss, I think time will tell, but it's going to be a very big miss. So what do you do? And to create these jobs, you really need entrepreneurs. So the starting point of every job is entrepreneurship. Somebody is taking that risk somewhere, whether in India, overseas. You can do anything, but there is some entrepreneur somewhere who's creating that jobs. And I think that's part of like Vineet 2.0, version 2.0, if you look at it forward, is how do you create entrepreneurs in this country who can then create jobs. So that is what the foundation is about. That is what we spoke up to now was about the business and impact investing. But I think the seeds of that foundation are being sown now. Vineet has shared some stuff with me, and it's pretty exciting. There's going to be a lot of experimentation. There is no blueprint. It's again pioneering in some ways of how do you create entrepreneurs out of people who might not have education, might not have capital, do not have the talent. So if you start with it with that premise, it looks like a no-go. It looks like why are you even doing it? But I think he's done one crazy thing and probably on to a bigger one now. So would love to hear your thoughts on that, Vineet, and what's the vision, and maybe we can touch on just a couple of aspects of that.
So very quickly, I am actually a great believer. I didn't want to do any not-for-profit ever. I always believed that for-profit is the way to go. But then COVID struck, and I could not figure out any part of my business to play any role when the people were walking hungry back to their home. I come from Varanasi, Eastern UP, and so out of a hub, we were all sitting at home, so I actually wrote to my board and everybody that let's actually contribute to create a foundation to contribute to the feeding of people. And we have 8,000 employees within the group, and those 8,000 employees, whatever they will contribute, the company will contribute 2x of that. So we mobilized around 4 crores in a very short period of time in 10 days, and this 4 crores was used basically to feed 30,000 people for 45 days. Now, all that was good. One of my board members, independent board member, is UK Sinha, the ex-chairman of SEBI. Mr. Sinha said, okay, Vineet, this is a very good thing. I'm happy to become the chair of this foundation. So all that was done, but when all this was done, we did not know what to do then, because this was not really our goal. So COVID was over, people were not hungry anymore. And then Mr. Sinha said that there are enough people who know how to give money away, just like that. Can you actually think something that you can't do in your business that this foundation should do? Otherwise, you will just become another donor granting agency. So I spent some time thinking, reflecting, and I realized, and this is where I give a lot of credit to my father. My father once asked me, so what do you think, how many people know you in from where you come from? I said, oh, so many people know me here, there, either, but nobody knows you in Banaras, Ghazipur, so, because you have done nothing here. And even though I have actually created probably first bank in Eastern UP called Utkarsh Bank. So taking that, I have been going to my village and I actually have been seeing that we have a lot of stunting. Children are actually not tall. Malnutrition is fairly rampant. Everybody wants to become a billionaire because they are all seeing Shark Tank and everything. So there is, and this is actually, the pyramid of aspiration is flat. What my children think is what exactly the children in the village think. So aspiration pyramid is flat. The resource pyramid actually exists as is. So these kids have exactly the same expectation. They want to be on Shark Tank, they want to raise money, they want to be an entrepreneur. Most of them want to become billionaires. They have no clue how to do it. So what do? They actually smoke. They have all kinds of opium products available. So if you go to the villages, you will get all kinds of stuff. So you think it is happening in Punjab because you see Udta Punjab, it is actually across rural belt. The amount of drugs, etc., because everybody wants to fly. And if you can't fly literally, then you actually fly in some other way. So the more I spend time, I realize that if you do not do something to this very large, youthful, aspirational population that we are seeing, we will start seeing massive challenges soon, much sooner than what we think. And so the more I thought about it, the more I realized that what we have done is created an ecosystem for entrepreneurs. When I started off, there was no entrepreneurship, no startup India, nothing. Can I actually, and I have done it in India, I've done it in Indonesia, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, we've done it in East Africa. Why can't we do it in a very concentrated way in Eastern UP, which is probably the Human Development Index is equivalent to Sub-Saharan Africa. Eastern UP has some of the most fertile land, but its Human Development Index is equal to there. Can you actually somehow convert those very smart people, very aspirational guys, into small-time entrepreneurs? Again, I'm not talking about an Ashoka University, I'm not talking about a Plaksha University. Can you somehow inspire every kid going to government school to think about business as an alternative? Everybody in UP want to become an IAS, IPS, or a peon in a government job. They are not thinking about anything else. So can you actually inspire them to become entrepreneurs? Those kind of entrepreneurs, Aavishkaar cannot invest because I am looking for that exclusive one guy who can build a 1,000 crore business. These guys can create a 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 20 lakh business. They can actually create jobs for 3, 5, 10, but they will be there. To do this, we may need to inspire the tens of thousands of government schools to actually carry out something called business planning exercise that happens regularly in urban schools. Help the kids to be articulate, stand in front of a camera and speak. We have already done that, and we had seen some very good success there. Can we then pick up between 18 to 50 people who have either migrated back or young guys, young kids with some capability, virtually incubate them, and then provide them 5 to 10 lakh rupees as an entrepreneurial. This is not going to be a real equity investment. It's sort of, you give them real cash, probably as a grant, but behave as if you have given them equity. Help 100 guys become entrepreneur every year. And in 5 years, maybe from 1,000 odd entrepreneurs. Take Sequoia's failure rate, 80%. If you get 20 guys successful over 5 years' time, you would have created 200 role models for the local society. And those 200 role models will be able to inspire a whole new generation. And if I am able to do that, in 5 years' time, I want to launch a university of mass entrepreneurship in that same area. And that can be replicable. I'm very particular. We are looking for mass entrepreneurship. I'm not looking for technicality. I'm not looking for livelihood creation. We are essentially trying to build an ecosystem that will allow an average person to do an average entrepreneurial job. And for that, provide that capital that will never be provided by a bank or a microfinance institution or an Aavishkaar. And that's what the foundation wants to do. Till now, the foundation has actually raised money from internal sources, but we want to go out now and raise as much capital as possible. I'll require 10 to 15 crores every year for next 5 years, so roughly 75 crores over next 5 years, to produce these 1,000 entrepreneurs. We have tied up, we are in the process of tying up with BHU and all other universities locally. We are trying to identify 10,000 odd schools that we will actually engage with children to do this. And all this will be done over the next 5 years. And if I'm successful, then I think we would see some serious on-ground change in that geography, which in my view is around 5 crore odd people. So even if we can actually inspire 200 entrepreneurs, a whole generation will probably look different. So that's really the idea. It looks challenging, and I don't know whether 80% success ratio is right or wrong. But if you look back to Aavishkaar's journey of last 20 years, our failure rate has been 33%. And that's why we are a Stanford case study, because they found it bizarre that we actually have such a high success rate. But that is because we have actually converted early stage investing into a science from an art. And I'm hopeful that some of this we will be able to transfer through the foundation on the ground as well.
So I think you're going to launch the real Indian Idol or KBC, where you can actually pick people than just a reality show. This is reality entrepreneurship. I think there are things which we can learn from the West, but I think a lot of things it's our problem. We'll have to find our solution. So I think I truly believe that this is a viable option. If you have your heart and mind and resources to it, you'll make some dent, and it gets amplified over time. It starts small, but you get a J curve over time in almost anything that you put 10,000 hours in collectively. But to many of you, this is a foundation. That's the purpose of the foundation. If any of you would want to get involved, not necessarily monetarily, but in any way, time is a big factor. And I'm not even discussed with Vineet, but I'm making an open offer of people who want to just get involved, whether it's part-time, full-time. I think as the ecosystem will need people to contribute not just money, but time. And I think a lot of this in today's day and age will be aided by technology. Everything doesn't need to travel. Everybody doesn't need to be in that village. I think there'll be a core team which will probably be there. But I think lot of the people who will be engaged in this will be sitting remotely, and it's possible now. We do so many things remotely, and I think a lot of the operational part of this could probably get handled like that. And if this template gets set even over a year or whatever time frame, it's a very replicable template for the rest of the country, and it can inspire people in any number of cities. I don't think it's the money really. It's kind of it's a moonshot kind of project. And if you get it right, and I think there are more chances of getting it right. I don't think you can go wrong. You can go less right with something like this. So as a firm, like I mentioned, I think we would start contributing to you from this year, and me personally. So I would encourage anyone here who wants to be involved in any manner to kind of reach out, and there's no start date and end date, so you can make up your mind 1 year later also. With that, maybe let me open it up to folks here. If anyone has any comments, any questions, that'll be, we can spend last few minutes on that. Sure.
Hi, Vineet. Thanks. Thanks, Nipun. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this one. The aspiration pyramid is flat, but the resource pyramid is always the way it was. I don't think I've heard the inequality described ever so eloquently. But my question too is that, you talked about creating choices. And now as you travel across countries, across India, Indonesia, and the others, where do the choices stay the same and where do they differ?
So, first, there is no end. There is no end to where you can actually stop, because human being by nature is very aspirational. So, I think we have to define when your role ends, because at the end of it, everybody wants to buy a jet. Not everybody, but a large number of people will. And a lot of poor are very ambitious. So what I have actually chosen, and after spending a lot of time, what I realized is, while they say they want to be rich, but a lot of them are community focused. Remember, a lot of people tell you that poor have large heart. There's a gentleman called Venkat who's founded GIFT Foundation. Venkat and I started at the same time. GIFT Foundation is a fairly large, famous foundation. Venkat is actually fairly known from the Prime Minister to Bill Gates. He's actually a fairly famous guy. Both of us started from same place, same this thing. And Venkat keeps saying poor have a large heart, which I believe is complete bullshit, because poor don't have a large heart. Poor have no choice, so therefore they are very community focused. And as you become rich, you become less and less focused on community, because cash will allow you to survive. So I think when you allow a poor to transition, you should know at what point of time they will change. And that's where our role ends. And the choices actually goes from government school to private school, from private school to higher end, and and it has happened to all of us. A lot of us probably I came from a very middle class family, but my son behaves very differently from how I think. And you can see the change. So I think the choices across the globe is almost exactly the same. So I have been in Africa, people exactly think the same way. I have been in Indonesia, same way. Bangladesh, same way. Bangladesh and Sri Lanka pretty much mirror what Indians do. But it's the same in Indonesia. It's not very different in Africa as well. And Africa culturally is very different from us, by the way.
I would just add to this that, human beings are, while the language might be different and cultures might be different, but emotions are very similar. You can grow across the length and breadth, but emotionally, people are very similar on how they react with even money. It just changes as you kind of move in life and your resources change or your ecosystem changes, you might behave differently. But I think other than that, at the bottom, I think very similar.
I have a question. Vineet, first of all, congratulations on all the great work, and it's truly inspiring. And Nipun, thanks for doing this conversation. If you could just, I was going to ask actually before you segued into the foundation on the issue of unemployment in this country. So obviously you're 10 steps ahead of the curve. How acute is the issue? You used an example of you're in UP, but I mean I'm sure you've traveled around the country. How big is this problem of unemployment and this potential ticking time bomb? I'd be interested to, because I get the sense that it is. I don't hear about it enough. You hear anecdotal sort of thing, but I guess you're closer to the ground, and if you could shed a little more light on how.
So, Shireen Bhan was actually pushing me a little bit on this because I have a slightly different view from the general. So journalists normally say, oh, there's no employment, there's this is happening. But if you go to a microfinance institution, attrition is 40%. Attrition rate of creating a well-paying job in rural India in a village is 40%. So there is a problem, and that problem is slightly more nuanced than a job. India is a classical place of underemployment and not lack of employment. There is enough and more jobs available. The youth is not being trained to actually take the rigor of the kind of job, the kind of training that has been provided, the education that they come. Out of 10 people you will train, only 2 or 3 will have the ability and rigor to keep doing those jobs continuously. So they drop out quite rapidly. The system at the home, so there are lots and lots of challenges that we have. The challenge is less about them, because if you create lots of jobs, you will continue to face this problem. And so, just to give you an idea, we have 8,000 people. We face 29%, and we have one of the best systems that one can believe to very rural employees. 35% attrition. Every 3 years, my whole company changes. That's ridiculously expensive. But that's the problem. So I think the problem, and we need to understand, there are enough jobs, the aspiration and the job do not match. Capability and aspiration do not match. So my capability is this, my aspiration is this, and the job offers me something which is around my capability, I will always be unhappy.
How do you bridge that gap, or how do you aim to bridge that gap with your...
So therefore, we have to think on this is the problem. It's not a problem that you can solve easily. You need to create role models is my takeaway. Right now, the role models, if you especially go to rural India, the role models could be a Bahubali, somebody who actually, because you will see the number of people hanging behind that guy is just extraordinary. Then there is a new role models, which I actually observed. I was actually standing there, so every time there is a death that's taking place on the border, when the bodies come, they come in a full military honor. I was just amazed. 500 to 1,000 guys on motorcycle with every convoy. Now this is going to be a full day effort. Where are you getting 1,000 guys actually on a motorbike? I was standing there, and every second day there was a convoy when there was a little bit of skirmishes going on Galwan. It just amazed me that 1,000 people, 500 people every day. That means, and that's why when they actually want to do recruitment for army, certainly you have a stampede taking place all over India, because that's an aspirational job. So you need to find a solution. I don't have 100% perfect this thing, but I genuinely believe you can create entrepreneurship. A lot of people may want to become entrepreneurs because success and power, that's what actually drive a lot of people. That I can give jobs to others is a very addictive thought process. If we can channelize, I can become a billionaire or I can become a government officer into I can give them a job provider, probably we may address it. This is the guess that I'm making. I have to prove it. I saw it happen in front of my eyes in India. The startup word came very late, but I saw it. I have been part of that journey where nobody wanted to be in startup. And I have seen that. I mean, to be very frank, and you can ask any venture capitalist, 2016 is the year of change. Rajat is sitting here. He has all the data of all the venture capital funds in India. Our exits started coming only in 2016 in this country. You pick any fund here, including Sequoia, Axel, and you plot their exits. All their exits go like this, and then 2016 onwards like that. So last 6 years is when we have seen exit. India used to struggle to give exits. We were actually abused across the globe for a country that promises a lot, delivers nothing. And even today, everybody is shit scared. We are promising a lot, will we deliver? This is actually a discussion. He's coming from Singapore. I was in Abu Dhabi. We are all being asked this question, will you guys ever deliver? So I think it's not a problem at our highest level. It's a problem at the bottom also. Lots of promises. Our delivery is still far behind. And our manpower is also not necessarily suitable. We are not like China, where people are put in and people will put 12 hours.
Is it vocational training, or you think it's more a kind of like a
I think
psychological sort of thing?
So I think it's more also, if you ask 10 people, you'll probably get 10 answers, so I don't claim to be any expert here, but I think the perspective is that it's all over the place. I think fundamentally, I also believe that we lack talent in across field. Like there is that layer of talent at the top, but then it starts slipping very quickly. You know, here's one of the founders here, for every one job he needs to hire in technology, I think it's a struggle to get that right guy. You can interview 20 people, but to get the right guy, real challenge. And I hear this consistently across industries, consistently across geographies, that you're not just getting the right person. So something has gone wrong in the education system also, and where the bar is very low, leave the top 200-300 universities and
there
colleges.
is a nutrition issue also. I actually
Could
genuinely
be everything.
believe there is a
mix of
nutrition issue
everything.
also. If you have stunting, malnutrition, wrong food, it's not they are hungry. So they are eating, but it's actually not really allowing the brain to develop at the level. You see that as you go in rural India, you see that quite distinctly. It stare you in the face. So there is a problem, and I think government is fairly well aware of it. It's not that the government in the center or the states are not aware of it. So it's a very obvious problem. You will not be able to distinguish whether the kid is 15-year-old or 11-year-old or 17-year-old. They all look the same.
And this is not just white-collar jobs or technology jobs or graduate jobs. We get this feedback from construction sites, literally construction workers, like there's nothing to do with education, it's just manual labor. But the productivity of an Indian guy is like less than 50% of like the top 40, 50, 60 country, like China, if you take China as a benchmark. So I don't know what's contributing to all this. But I don't want to say we are like, people just don't want to work. People want to work, but I really don't have the right answer. I don't have a pulse on that. But I think in general, there's like huge productivity gaps. Could be a mix of talent, could be nutrition in some sectors, could be just education and the way the ecosystem, it could be mindset also. You know, we have free data. Everybody is just looking at damn data and addicted to social media and data. Like, imagine drivers and, you know, I can, like, all over the place. Like, it seems people are so distracted here that you want to work, but then you want to get into this data shit and view this whole day long. So we probably even, I don't know, created a country of addicts on just TikToks and social media, in addition to all the other things that, you know, we spoke about. It could be many things put together. Sure.
Vineet, thank you. I think it's quite inspiring to see you know, somebody right in front of us doing a lot of things all together single-handedly. I mean, I have a question that, you know, everybody starts with an organization. You made a group. I mean, why I'm asking you this question, because I've run an entrepreneurship myself for 9 years, and I have to shut it down after COVID, because unfortunately, I was not as lucky as you that I flew abroad and, you know, met some of my friends. So I have a question that what exactly I felt after dissection of closing that, you know, venture for 9 years, that, you know, we need to create a basis. Because see, we can definitely, you know, make a lot of people entrepreneur, but if the base is not strong, they might fall apart. So my question is, because you have already made a lot of, you know, organizations, my question is to you is, how did you make that base very strong when you started your organization? And you know, now from 1996 to, if you talk about 2001, and then you made it a group now from a company. So I am sure it is not possible single-handedly, but the base has to be very, very strong. My question to you is, how can we make those base strong?
So this actually is a question came from somebody who was a partner at Accenture and has joined me.
Oh, okay.
And it's why do people stay and why do people leave? So, and I didn't have money to offer. So I used to sell a dream, but that dream was not mine. I used to sell it as their dream. So every person who joined me, I said, I can give you a lot of happiness. I can give you a lot of independence. I won't give you money. And I used to hire people from Harvard, Wharton. So when I started off, I realized it's very difficult to hire an Indian. Yeah. So instead of hiring Indians, I started, and I did everything virtually, by the way. I will actually go into groups, student groups, etc. in Harvard, Wharton, and others. I told, listen, guys, you have no understanding how India will evolve. I will give you that exposure. I'll pay 20,000 rupees a month. And you will have to live in Mumbai. Now, how you survive is your problem. And I picked people from Harvard, Stanford, Princeton for first 4 years. Then suddenly government of India figured out that some jokers are actually bringing foreigners and keeping them at low salaries. So they decided that if you bring in a foreigner, you have to pay 2.5 lakh rupees as the salary. So then I moved to Indians. So I only in 2007 I started hiring Indians. In Indians, I realized there is actually a set of people who are actually done very well for themselves. They come from the best of best, IIT, IIM. They have also gone outside, etc. They have done well, but they are not satisfied by jumping in the box that have been offered to them. They have a desire to jump out of the box. In 2007, 8, 9, 10, they didn't want to actually jump out of the box on their own because there was not enough startup capital available. That is available today. So they found in Aavishkaar a potential place to align themselves to an idea of doing something which is impactful. I mean, I'll give you an example. There was a gentleman from Citibank, 18 years Citibank, he applied to me. So I said, what will you do? I mean, why would you want to join Aavishkaar from Citibank? So he said, I have only gone to Delhi once. This guy is a top tech company, top IIT, top not IIT, is actually UDCT, and a top tier business school. He's come to Delhi once, lives in Mumbai, Santa Cruz, and has never seen any part of India. Never seen. I made him in charge of my investment in UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha. That guy is now an expert of that area. He's a Bombay bred, Bombay brought up guy who's never seen India itself. He said, I want to see with my own eyes, can you change? And so contribution was a bigger driver than salary. Now, when you are trying to contribute and create a legacy for yourself, he's not thinking about a next job, etc. So most people who joined me were unaffordable for anybody else to pick up. So when you build an institution, you have to find people who are smarter than you. It's a very cliched statement. I genuinely find a lot of people who are smarter than me because I was a forester. I never went to a tech institute. I never went to IITs. But a large number of our employees come from the best and brilliant, and some of them have worked in Goldman, some this, that, etc. But I realized very quickly that the larger the institution, the more structured it is, the less the opportunity, and they hire the best people, and they have a lot of frustrated souls there. So poach the best, and then life will be easy. So, and they are the ones who save you during downturns, because they are so bright, they can actually create solutions for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. I think I've got my answer. I just wanted to just say to what Nipun has asked me, that certainly I would like to volunteer with you in your this venture. What exactly you say, that you'll be making a lot of entrepreneurs. I would love to volunteer if you allow me, and I will not say that I will give you all the time, but certainly I can give you Saturday, Sunday for sure if I can be of any help.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great start. But thank you, everyone. You've been very patient. I didn't realize we've kind of grossed over the hour here. But, you know, we all hear every day stories about heroes and celebrities. He's a real hero right here. So let's give it up for Vineet.